Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast and game 1 in a series between FXO's Strelok versus Mouth Sports' Mana. I believe they are still part of the same part of those respective teams. If they are not, my apologies. But then it's all gonna be fixed in Heart of the Swarm, as players will be able to actually have clan tags. Strelok spawning as the blue Terran player on the top left-hand side of the map. Mana spawning as the green Protoss over here on the bottom right. This is going to be a Terran versus Protoss here on Ohana. Game 1 in a series. I don't quite know if it's a best of 3 or if it's just a 3-game set and one player takes it all. But let's go ahead and enjoy them all together as we now see the game get underway. We'll see what Mana is going to be doing. He is building that pylon relatively close to home. He is not going to be going for any crazy forge fast expansion antics against a Terran player, just because Terran can proxy 2 racks. That proxy 2 racks does become a little bit difficult, as we are seeing Strelok now just starting to mine here. Taking a look, we are going to see the barracks come down, and the key question now will be whether or not Strelok does try to get an earlier gas. Now, there's been a lot of talk about balance as of late, and people have been saying a lot of things, saying that Terran's the weakest race now, Terran's this, Terran's that. I don't know if Terran's the weakest race. I do know that it is a bit underrepresented in Grandmasters and in Masters in terms of the total population. Take that as you may. It is a little bit overrepresented in the Bronze League, so either Terran. Actually, I'm not going to even try to draw any conclusions. You guys can talk about that here, as we are now moving into an orbital command. A probe is going to be coming up the ramp and spotting a Marine getting trained. We are seeing some supply depots being placed down by Strelok here on the front door as well, as this probe is just wandering back and forth. So far, Mana sitting on 1 gas, getting up that cybernetic score, now training up a zealot, a little bit of a delayed zealot, as that zealot stalker may try and do a bit of pressure. What we'll see most likely is that Strelok is going to make his way down, perhaps set up a bunker here. We should perhaps be seeing a factory. Not quite sure why. No, it's going to be a tech lab instead. Okay, so this was a 14 gas into a tech lab, and there is currently only 1 harvester on gas. We are going to see 1 probe sitting at the Zelnaga tower here, as an SCV is going to try to slip its way up the ramp. That zealot now going to perhaps intercept this 1 SCV, and that is going to be a huge hit, as the SCV now able to make it inside. It sees that there is no expansion coming in from Mana, which is important to note. And now taking a look inside here, it pretty much spots very little. It sees very heavy saturation inside the main here. This is actually heavier than the standard 16 that most Protoss players go. We are still seeing more probes being trained, as we are now going perhaps into a nexus down here at the natural expansion. Command center from Strelok has already been constructed. We see 1 Marauder in position. Stim pack now being researched. We see 3 SCVs once more on gas, as we are going into an additional barracks. I like this little bit of a head fake. He got the refinery down. It allows him to get that tech lab. It allows him to get up a Marauder, and it allows him to start up that stim pack research just a little bit faster. By pulling some SCVs off of gas, he is then able to get heavier saturation on the minerals and then build this command center up slightly faster as well. Now, what is Mana going to do? Mana should be throwing down a robotics facility at some point, perhaps expecting at least, or being prepared for cloaked banshees. Instead, what we're going to see is heavier Marine Marauder counts, as we are going into a 3 racks build, 1 reactor, stim pack, and we'll see if we do have another tech lab down here, perhaps researching concussive shells or combat shield. There's that robotics facility. As I mentioned before, I do believe that Mana is expecting a bit more of harassment, as opposed to a longer economic game. Strelok is a little bit behind here, but he does have 3 mules, and he is sitting on 25 harvesters compared to 28. This 1 Nexus is finally operational, but it's playing a little bit more catch up than anything else. Now, Strelok does have a bunker here on the front door. We are going into a factory now. This is going to be another reactor, showing that this is going to be a very, very heavy marine composition. And my question is going to be, when are we going to be seeing that robotics bay? Down over here in this neck of the woods in Mana's base, you see no, there's the robotics bay now coming in. Is it being hidden in the bottom right hand side of the map? Robotics bay is coming online. About another 50 seconds or so until it's completed. The Marines will not have combat shield in time, and that is going to severely hurt any chances for Strelok's push to actually deal damage. You can see a reactor and a factory with a starport nearby. We all know what's going to be happening here as the Marauder now pushing out across the field. This is a very, very heavy engaging group of units. There are sentries and zealots. Now we are training up some immortals as well, as the Marines and the Marauders are nearby. More units now coming in as well. One proxy pylon on the far side of the map to perhaps come in and choke up some of those reinforcements in just a little bit, as Marines and Marauders now making their way over. Medevac now coming in as we see a factory floating out across the map. It will spot this proxy pylon. Will it perhaps try to do anything, as the Marines and Marauders taking a look for that proxy pylon, and will fortunately spot it over here in this neck of the woods. However, the Colossi from Mana already being added. No level 1 weapons upgrade, as we are seeing the combat shield and level 1 weapons upgrades for those Marines and those Marauders. This is going to hit a bit of a timing now. Medevacs are in the air. Combat shield needs about another, 60 seconds or so. Zealots now clearing out these rocks. We do have an immortal already, as the first Colossus will be ready. I think Strelok was just a little bit late in the timing here. We could perhaps see some Marauders and Marines jump up into the medevac for a bit of an elevator drop, as the Immortals, Stalkers, Colossi have made their way through. Level 1 weapons upgrade about halfway completed. 10 more seconds. We see more barracks now being added. 2 more medevacs, as we are going to be going into double Viking production, perhaps expecting that Colossi will be coming in shortly. Colossus, what is going on here? That is a lot of Marines and medevacs ready to go. More medevacs coming in. We could have just a pure elevator drop inside the main base, lifting up the units, dropping them off, but there are already Stalkers and Zealots in position. One Colossus here. Is it going to be enough? We see Marauders and Marines ready to go, waiting for perhaps the level 1 weapons upgrade to complete. But this is just buying time for Mana to get a heavier Colossi count. However, those Colossi don't have extended thermal... Wow, that's loud. It doesn't have extended thermal lance range. And that is... And without extended thermal lance range, the Marauders and the Marines may be able to get up in front and actually snipe down the Colossus before the Colossus perhaps whittle away at these Marines and Marauders. You can see 4 Vikings are in the air. The Observer is now still keeping track. Mana really heavy in terms of production, and it really feels like Strelok knows that Mana has sight on him, perhaps with an Observer, and with that, he is forcing more units to be trained. Reactor production really heavy now. We are supply blocked at 125 over 126. More units now still being trained here, as there goes the Observer. 5 Vikings now ready to go. Double training of Vikings once again being started. 133 over 142. More supply depots need to be added, as we are running on 5 barracks. Level 1 armor upgrades now coming in. And this, meanwhile, level 1 weapons and armor upgrades have already been completed for Mana. If Strelok is trying to attack, he needs to do so now. In comes the factory. Are we going to see perhaps a bit of damage? Vikings now coming in from the far side, and the sentries, are they going to be able to get off those force fields? It looks like they will. 3 force fields just in time, as the scanner sweep now reveals not much here on the high ground. All right, Vikings now trying to push their way through. Is it going to work out? No, it is not. They need to back off again, as there is a small tactical force trying to come up from the far side. Vikings are pushing back against those Colossi. The Marines and the Marauders now trying to push their way through. Mana doing a great job holding this, as the Vikings are still pushing that Colossus further and further back. Marauders and Marines are now trying to engage. There you have it, up the secondary ramp. and Strelok has broken through the front lines, and this will be a GG coming in from Mana. Even though Mana did have superior upgrades and superior tech, he didn't have, I believe, the extended thermal lance range, and without that, he wasn't able to engage against the Marauders without actually suffering damage as well. We see an Archon now being merged in, but it is going to be too little, too late. Mana easily taking game 1 in this series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.